Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Morning, Nikki. Morning, Sheldon.
Morning, morning.
Morning.
I
Good
can't see
morning,
who's saying
colleagues.
hello. How's it?
Good, good. How are you, Nikki?
Very well, and you?
Good, good.
Excellent.
Hi, Nikki. It's Christian. How are you guys?
Good, good, Christian. I'm so glad you introduced yourself, that you were in the room. I wondered if you would want to just say hello to all your suppliers just after my welcoming. So in about 3 minutes. Just
Not a
to,
problem.
okay, perfect. So I'll just hand over to you then, Christian.
Okay.
It's just really a message of support for what we are doing here today.
Okay, 100%.
Um,
How's the turnout looking?
Good. 128 people registered. And then that we don't know who will join via YouTube. Lots of academia again. So they really have taken an interest in this project and the impact it's going to have.
Okay. If we finished, we can have a look at the list again and see how much of the depots we've actually reached, and then we can look maybe look at another plan to get more of these guys involved. So
okay,
we'll just have a chat afterwards as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome to go and say something. Oh. I can't see how many people are in the room already. Matlali?
Yes, Nikki.
Okay, just to let you know, Harry's doing housekeeping. I'm going to do like a 2-minute hello. Then Christian is going to just welcome in the TFN dealers or the suppliers. That's the actual truck stops. I'm going to go to one slide where I will explain why we're here today. And then I would like to hand over to you just to confirm government's commitment. And then I will start to explain. Are you all right with that?
I'm perfect. We
Thank you.
have the presentation ready. I don't know if you're going to need it today.
I think if we can less, there's, I don't want to kill death by PowerPoint kind of thing. It's more around just information and, this, I think we've got to the point where the message has got out and now we just need everyone to understand that there's no threat, there's no risk here. And so, yeah, I just really, your commitment.
Okay, that's perfect. So no presentation, I'll explain the process, I'll explain our commitment to the process, and then that'll be it. That's fine with me.
Yes, and then from there, Sheldon, myself, and Ayanda will follow with our presentations.
Perfect, that's fine.
Okay.
Awesome, thanks, Nikki.
Righty, good morning, everybody. Great seeing all the faces again. And thank you for Nikki for joining all the way from Italy. I specifically requested that background. So I just want to notify when Nikki is speaking, it's not a virtual background, it's a real background.
Oh, I'll send you my bill for optometry while I'm blinded from the morning sun.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank
Ladies
you.
and gents, this housekeeping, please keep yourselves on mute, the old story, and please make use of the chat room to, post some questions there maybe for the panelists, and also you can obviously, share some contact details with each other and have some nice discussions, but please keep the discussions in the chat room related to the topics being discussed today. We really appreciate that. And so today, and let me get our program up, and let me quickly have a look at this program. So you can see we're busy with the National Truck Stop Framework, and it's the 8th of October 2024, and we're proudly being hosted by the SaferStops Association, Nikki Scott being the CEO of this. And Nikki, thank you very much also for supporting the Transport Forum. I'm going to allow Nikki just now to kindly take over as MC of this event and being the host. But I think also important is just to give some recognition to the Transport Forum's sponsors. And so there we go. You can see the Transport Forum has got many associations associated formally with the Transport Forum, including the SaferStops Association. And you can see we've also got media houses involved, Railways Africa, Freight News, Engineering News, and Focus on Transport and Logistics. And you can see we also have gold sponsors. And all these sponsors make the Transport Forum possible, and also making it possible for us to offer these events and initiatives complementary to the public. And we've been doing this for almost 18 years already. So thank you very much, SaferStops, as well, for your support. We really appreciate that. So SaferStops Association, uniting minds, sharing vision and resources, uplifting well-being, boosting road safety for South Africa's commercial drivers. What a great association. Thank you, Nikki. So back to our program for today, and I would like to hand you over to Nikki, our MC, to take us further through the program and the process. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Thank you, Harry. If you could just bring up that very first slide for me, so I can just leave that in the background.
Soonest.
Good morning, everyone. While Harry does that, and yes, a warm welcome from, you can go back some slides. I'm seeing the vital role here. Very warm welcome from Italy. I am currently on the Amalfi Coast. I've never seen, I thought Camps Bay was beautiful, but this really is an incredible part of the world. So if you've got a moment, just Google it, Amalfi Coast. But work doesn't stop for anyone on holiday. So I'm here this morning just to once again reach out to the listeners and looking for South Africa's support in this initiative, the National Truck Stop Framework. I'm going to explain this in a bit more detail, but I want to just reiterate that the SaferStops Association is a registered NPO. We have a Section 18A certificate. We are made up of a board of 21 steering committee members, 3 directors, and the SteerCo are a combination of public and private sector individuals that are all subject matter experts, really focusing on the well-being of the ecosystem, not just truck drivers, but the truck stops, the communities in which these truck stops operate within, and then, of course, the truck drivers and the fleet operators. So today was a very special event because we've actually had the introduction to the National Truck Stop Framework project a couple of weeks ago. But I wanted to specifically reach out to the TFN network. I felt that TFN as a group have done an enormous amount of work in growing their footprint. And I think it's important that we speak directly to TFN supply network. So I had a meeting with Christian and with John Stephen and explained how the SaferStops Association is not here to threaten. It's not here to bring about regulation that is going to try and control or negatively impact your businesses. But what we're really wanting to do is to usher in a change that is positive, and that can create real impact for driver health and well-being and for the safety of the operators' fleets. So having said that, I'm going to ask Christian just to say a few words of support as to why he chose, well, why TFN chose to get involved.
Thank you, Nikki. As Nikki said, we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and as Nikki was explaining to us what this is all about, we actually got to a point that we actually felt, listen, this is a great opportunity for all the TFN partners on our network to actually grow their business. Not just to grow their business, but actually to be a part of something bigger and be a safer place for drivers. And we would just like to thank everyone of TFN's network for joining this meeting. And I was in the previous meeting, and I think you guys are going to get a great sense of what this is all about and how we actually are helping the community, helping the truck drivers, and helping you grow your business. Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, thank you so much. So let's pop into that first slide so that we can get everyone on track. All right, go to the next one for me, please, Harry. So I'm not going to read these slides, guys. The way these slides have been designed is that we can send them to you after this event so that you can work through them. They are data or information heavy so that you can read them without having to have someone steer you through it. But really, my background, and funny enough, I was one of TFN's clients for, 6 or 7 years. I used to own a transport operator. I'm sure my drivers from Siaduma stopped at many of your facilities over the years. And we used to move the brand new trucks as they came off the assembly line to the dealer network. And we only used the TFN infrastructure. And the reason being is that TFN was the only organization at the time that could give us a secure fuel facility where, because we were moving a brand new truck that was unlicensed and unregistered and it was white, mostly, we couldn't use a fuel card because there was no security. The banks wouldn't give us any form of security and they wouldn't link it to the trade plates. So the TFN network solution of being able to place an order at one of your truck stops with a set amount of liters gave us an enormous amount of comfort and created an environment where we as an organization were actually able to grow and not worry about fuel fraud. So I want to put that out there. This is a really important factor. But from that background, I truly do understand the challenges of managing truck drivers. I had over 250 permanently employed truck drivers. And with every environment, you get those amazing individuals and you get those few that taint the industry or taint it in an organization. So I'm not going to sit here today to say that truck drivers are innocent. And they can be quite challenging to manage. They can be very destructive in the environment they are placed in. They do things that sometimes don't make sense. And that's the reason why we are here today. The truck stop infrastructure up until now has been unregulated. Anyone can set up a truck stop, a rest stop. A truck stop we are defining as a facility that has a fuel, a diesel facility, it has catering and amenities, and it has parking. Now, there are going to be various levels of all of that, and that's what we want to measure. There's no definition of a truck stop, and this is what we're wanting to do with you as an industry. And I think this is really important that everybody realizes that we are not here to impose anything. We're really asking the truck stops of South Africa to work with us in creating a standard. Work with us to make sure that sites that offer diesel are offering clean diesel, that are not going to destroy fleets, that are legally compliant, in that they do have a retail license and that they do have a site license to operate. So having said that, what we've done is formally set up the association. We have now set up a plan with the Department of Transport, and I'm going to introduce Mahlali in a second, whereby this has been a key focus of the National Department of Transport to look at the truck stop infrastructure, and in terms of looking at the major economic routes. Do we have enough infrastructure on those routes? Do we have enough parking bays for the wheels that are on the road? And what needs to be done further to support this environment so that we can improve road safety? That's the ultimate goal. It has to be road safety. And that includes driver health and wellness, because when the drivers are not healthy, road safety is compromised immediately. So this project is a private public partnership where National Department of Transport is our biggest partner, and then the private sector have joined hands with us because they understand the importance. Mahlali, could I give a hand over to you just to give us a couple of words on why this is so important to the department?
Thank you so much, Nikki. Thank you to Christian and everyone else that has joined on the platform. A special thank you to Harry, our host, who's always keen to gather us as the public and private sector to come and join hands and speak to what exactly we're doing as government. I know our messaging is not as strong as it should be, so there is a lack of understanding from the industry and private sector side on what exactly government does. So this is a flagship project for us, and you would know that we've got two crises in the country. The one is electricity and the second one is logistics. As part of the National Logistics a crisis committee that I serve in the secretariat of, it is important for us to look at logistics solutions that would create seamless movement of our cargo throughout the country. The primary factor as well is to decrease the cost of doing business. And truck stops are a critical nodal point in the supply chain for us to consider. So this project emanates from our road freight strategy, which is adopted by Cabinet in 2017, where we want to look at how we can enhance the effectiveness of the nodal points in the supply chain to ensure that seamless movement. We would all know that truck stops are a safe haven for truck drivers who are within the supply chain, within the corridors. They utilize truck stops for resting, for refueling, for eating purposes, but also for recreational purposes. So it is very critical for us to first give an understanding and in a South African context of what a truck stop is. And I think Nikki alluded to this, that we are in the process of actually defining a truck stop in the South African context, because we've got places where trucks stop and then we've got truck stops. So this project is going to illuminate exactly what a truck stop should look like. And we take into cognizance that not all truck stops are the same. Those which we find in the major corridors will not be as the same as the ones we find in the city centers or on the bends of the cities. So we want to be relevant in understanding what the services that they provide are, what the actual need of the truck drivers are, because this is very critical, because the truck drivers are the MVPs of the truck stops. They're the ones that actually stop at the truck stop. So what are their actual needs? And the things that we're finding out through our interactions with the private sector through Nikki, of course, who is our strategic partner in this, is that truck drivers require the most simple of things. It's accommodation, it's recreational services, it's internet services, it's good food, also at a price that can be affordable. Because truck drivers are not going to go and want restaurant priced foods. They just want the basics, but also nutritional food, access to water, because hydration is also a big component of the problems that they face. It's also services like clinics where they can actually get, all the medication that they require for them to be able to proceed, whether it's cross border or around the country. So these are the kind of services and amenities that we want to try to enhance and look at what engagements, what collaborations can we have, whether it's with the Department of Health or the current service providers that provide such clinics. So, as I said, this is a flagship project for us. It's in collaboration with the private sector. We're no longer talking private sector participation. We are physically doing it. We want to thank Nikki and the SaferStops for being on board, but also for championing this cause and for taking it in such an important cause and saying we, as part of the private sector, but I know that they're an NPO, will bring everyone in the private sector on board so that everyone can actually develop this on their own. And I also want to say, as a bragging right, that for the first time we're doing this free of charge. We are not paying any service provider. Nikki has come on and said, I've got the resources to do this, I've got the private sector backing, and I've got the support, so we don't have to consistently, as the government, always get service provider to come and do the work for us. We actually are doing it in-house as a department. We're utilizing the skills, the meticulous understanding that we have, and Nikki as SaferStop. So we want to really, really applaud, this initiative on her part, but also as somebody who's consistently showing up and saying that, what does government require? What are your needs? How can we as a private sector help you? And I think this is going to be a springboard for us for most of the projects that we're going to run, because we really want to do things differently. It's business unusual. Government has got no money. We're undergoing cost-cutting measures, and we want to still have the same kind of effect, even bigger, where we pick on the brains of the people that are actually on the ground, that are using the services as government to provide that enabling environment for government, or for private sector rather, to thrive. Thank you, Nikki. We'll also have a presentation later on from us on what we've done to date. And this, again, my bragging rights, is done in-house. We've done, gone through international benchmarking. We've done everything. We did have an extensive presentation at the last one. So today we're not going to make it as extensive as that first one, because it is quite an elaborate presentation, but we'll flag out all the important elements so you can see what we've done in collaboration with SaferStops. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you, Matlali, and thank you for the vote of confidence. So, Harry, back to the presentation. All right, so just before I move on to, you can move over this to one more slide. Okay. This is what you guys all are here to hear, and how we're going to be doing things. So just before I hand over to Sheldon, I want to just mention to all of you that before we designed the truck stop self-assessment, we actually have been doing surveys in South Africa with truck drivers at multiple sites across the country. And I'm very grateful to all those truck stop owners that allowed my team to come on site to interview truck drivers. So we have around 3,500, might be more now, survey results from truck drivers, understanding what do they want, what do they need at a truck stop, what support would they love to have. Like, for instance, 83% of the truck drivers said that they would love to have a gym, basic gym equipment, just to be able to work out at the end of the day. We know that the average age of a driver sits around 33 to 48. We know there are fewer drivers entering the industry than what are exiting. We also know from data, and this is the tough one, and this is why this is so important, guys. Due to the current environment in which truck drivers operate, the stress, the lack of nutrition, the 20 plus days that they are away from home, a comprehensive study has been done showing that drivers' lives are reduced by about 13 years because of all of that. And that's where I feel we have a responsibility as part of this ecosystem to do more. So we're going to start with asking all of you guys. You will see in a couple of slides, a QR code will come up. We would like you to become a member of the SaferStops Association. It is totally free, and it's a very simple process. The moment you've done that, we will then ask you to do a self-assessment. The self-assessment is really comprehensive. It's got about 90 questions, but the guys that have already done it, some of your peers in industry, have said it was really interesting. They measured areas of their business that they've never actually paid attention to or even given consideration to. So it takes about a half an hour, 35 minutes to do the self-assessment properly. And then it's done online. So you can sit at your desktop and there's no printing and anything else. It's all simple and seamless, and you submit it through to us. What we are waiting to do now, and this is why today's session is so important, is that we have to send assessors out to all your sites to come and meet with you and go through your self-assessment. And we can only do that when we have enough truck stops on the route to make it affordable to send out a team. So I'm really appealing to all of you guys. Please don't be fearful. The Department of Transport are not coming out to criticize, to negatively impact on your businesses. This is something we can do together as an industry, and we can come up with the best metric system that meets, as Mahlali said, the South African conditions. While we've all done background research into international truck stops, we understand that South Africa is very different. So saying that, I'm going to hand over to Sheldon to take us through how the survey has been put together. Sheldon?
Morning all. Thanks, Nikki. So I think what we're going to try and do here today is say with the slides that we've got, they are quite content heavy, but I'll give a brief description of what we're looking at and how this information can be used by yourselves along with the self-assessment. When I'm based in the UK, so if I may introduce myself, I'm based in London. I'm an experienced consulting business analyst and project manager with a proven track record in essentially delivering complex transformations to organizations. My clients include His Majesty's Treasury, the Ministry of Justice, and the Metropolitan Police, as a couple of them. The experience that I bring is really in operational efficiencies, technology transitions, and regulatory compliance. With the benefit that I have of living in the UK, I've got access to a large amount of information relating to the work that has been done in the past to improve the quality of the services within the EU and the UK itself. With that in mind, the UK has some of the best truck stops in Europe, which is quite interesting. So I've had a chance to actually visit those and see how their services aligned. As Nikki alluded to, this is defined on an international level. I have taken into account when we've created the survey information from Australia, America. So it will feed in as very much, an international type survey. However, as this is the first launch of the survey, over time we will look to, shall we say, make it more homely, make it more applicable to the rugged conditions of South Africa and the way that the services are delivered there. So looking at the screen at the moment, the structure of the survey that we've created, looks at the security primarily. It looks at the amenities or the services that are currently provided on site. It looks at driver health and well-being and wellness, facilities that support it, be it gyms, clinics, driver wellness programs, and so forth. And we will also be touching on environmental sustainability. while some of that environmental element looks at the electric vehicles, EV charging, it also goes a little bit further than that in terms of the recycling facilities and support that's on site. As Ms. Flavie said earlier on, we're not just looking to blanket approach across all truck stops. The truck stops that may be in a city centre versus those that are on a motorway or highways or blue routes, are very different in terms of their makeup, their size, the available facilities that each of them offer. So the structure that I've put together applies a weighted system, a weighted scoring to the results. That allows us to compare rural sites to rural sites, city sites to city sites, and gives us an even benchmarking across those sites. And then we can do a like-for-like comparison. Depending on the scores that each question has that we've created has a score assigned to it. Depending how you respond to that question, your scores will vary. So, for example, if you were taking the forecourt of a truck stop, if that was going to be concrete, you might achieve 5 points. If it's tar, you might achieve 4 points. If it's paving, it might be 3, and if it's gravel, it'll be 2. Each one is structured in such a way that there are benefits, obviously, to the concrete, but obviously there are cost implications of having concrete. But we're looking to try and factor in a benchmark that to make it fair and even the way we score these. The scoring, once we've aggregated across all these various sections, will then give us a tiering of the sites. Those that score the highest scores, will obviously go into like a gold level tiering, and then it'll slowly decrease as we come down in the scores. Once we've had the ability to aggregate the scores and look at the individual site scores, we will be able to then, as you on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, we've got gold stars out of 5. You've got security 3 out of 5. And then you've got environmental sustainability. We'll be able to give and generate those codes or markings to indicate the level of performance of that site. Along with that, we'll also be working with the sites, to help improve them, and then what measures can be put in place to help get you to the next level of either one of those 3 elements. Is that
Sheldon,
benefit the organization.
Okay. Oh. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. I don't know if it's on my side. Carry on.
We did lose him. Sheldon, maybe can we ask that you just speak a little bit closer to the microphone?
Okay, so I've got earphones in here. I apologize. Yeah, my internet here is not so great. I'm in Greece at the moment. So the advantage of being able to score, accurately score sites, in terms of attracting additional business, international organizations that will be looking to invest in the organization or the infrastructure, and they will be able to have confidence that the scoring of it. If we can go to the next slide, please.
Shall perhaps go off camera.
Okay, I think my internet's totally down now.
Do you want me to take over?
Yes, thanks, sorry.
Okay, so in terms of the key metrics, guys, as Sheldon said, there will be, the idea is the self-assessment and the site assessments. The site assessment will be done by a joint team from DOT and from SaferStops. We have employed the services of 3 gentlemen that are able to go onto any operator's property and support them in establishing the higher standards that meet the requirements for an occupational health and safety certificate. So their mindset is around safety. They also work with dangerous goods, so they have a clear understanding of safety elements. And I think that this is so important because while they may not be truck stop owners and understand the intricacies of running a truck stop, they want to support you in really trying to identify, first of all, security. So is there a CCTV on site? If you do have cameras, can a operator actually view the coverage if there is an incident? Is the site well lit? Do you have patrols with security? I know some sites have security guards, some have dogs, some have fence patrols. There are all sorts. Some truck stops are in such rural areas that their risk is so low that they don't need to have as much security. So we want to be able to measure, like Sheldon said, like for like. A industrial site would want to have very high security because of its access to dense population. And maybe a site on the R101, very different requirements. The amenities basically are looking at the restrooms, the dining options. So do you cook food in-house? Are you bringing food in? Is there even a dining option? Or are you an urban industrial site where there are restaurants and KFCs and the likes outside? Or have you brought all of that in-house and that your site actually does have a KFC and a Steers and so on? Environmental sustainability, have you tried to invest in solutions to recycle? So that could be plastic, tin, cardboard and paper. Are you recycling water on your site? If you offer wash bays, what are you doing? The future may be EV. So we know that electric vehicles, there's 11 Volvo electric vehicles in the country at the moment. We know there's one charging station in Harrismith, but it's actually too far away from both Durban and Johannesburg for a truck to reach that charging station and charge. So the EV conversation is definitely still happening, as is green hydrogen, and then biofuels. So, we'll engage with you to see if this is something you're considering, and again, helping you through the association to start thinking about the evolution of the industry, because there is a new index that's coming in that called the Accountability Index, run by the World Bank, and that looks at the entire supply chain from the very beginning, where commodities originate to where it gets processed, and everyone in between. So the transport operators are going to have an enormous amount of responsibility put on them as to what vehicles they're buying, the trailers they're using, the energy sources they're using, and so on. EV is not going to replace diesel. That is not the fear. Please don't, that's not what we're trying to do. But we do need to start testing the EV environment, and that is going to require 1 or 2 projects to get going. The last element, which is driver wellness and health, this is the part that we want the drivers to personally rate. So while we will document whether there's a medical facility, whether there's a gym, whether there's healthy food, this area is specifically for the truck drivers to give us feedback on. So your site will be scored by us in conjunction with you on the first 3 levels. So you could get a 5 for security, maybe a 2 for amenities, and a 2 for environmental. But because you offer amazing food and you have this welcoming environment, the drivers can rate you in real time out of 1 to 5. This puts quite a bit of pressure back on you as truck stop owners to start thinking about how you're going to create welcoming environments for truck drivers where they can experience quality. Next slide. If any one of you is online, I would ask you please to scan the QR code on the top right corner. This is the self-assessment link. So basically, if you scan that now, but these slides will be shared, you can scan it later as well. You'll be taken to the link and you can start the process. You don't have to finish it in one go. It'll save your data. You can go back and continue with it. Is there something wrong with the volume, Harry? I just saw a message that it's very quiet.
No, it's fine on my side.
Okay. So picking up the momentum a little bit, guys. First step, do the self-assessment. Then let us send an external team to come and sit with you and look at your environment and gain greater insight into your environment. We will take some photographic evidence. The reason being is that all of this that we are talking about today is going to be a part of an app. So if any of you have used Airbnb or Uber, where you will notice that you can choose the location, you can choose the star rating, you can choose price. You have that freedom, and that's what we're wanting to do here. We're wanting to create the equivalent of the Airbnbs for truck stops, where a truck stop has got photographic evidence of the site, and that is where the truck drivers will be able to rate your facility. And then next slide. Go next one. Okay, so Sheldon would have spoken to this, but he's obviously losing a network. But we have urban sites, we have national route sites, we have rural sites and border post sites. They all have a slightly different weighting in terms of where security is like more important in certain areas. Like an urban site, security is critical because it's a high density area. There's a higher risk of people accessing that site. But we understand that because of space constraints, you might not be able to have a gym, you might not have a restaurant, you might not have a clinic. So on a national route site, say on the N3 or the N1, where you aren't as restricted in terms of space, we've put a higher weighted average on services because you do have the space to offer all of those services. So you can have a look at this when you get a chance, how we've actually measured this out. This is our thinking, but we need you to help us to measure this, to see whether we're on the right track here. Final slide coming up from my side, and I want to hand over to Ayanda. We've already said this. There is the self-assessment link again, guys. I think and the membership link, they're both there. We will have Q&A after this. I think if we can just, before I hand over to Yanda, please do know that the SaferStops Association, this is one of our projects. We also will be running the symposium for truck drivers. We had our first symposium this year with the DOT, and 22 private sector partners join us. TFN was one of them, where we brought in over 250 truck drivers to a 2-day event where we really are pushing for truck drivers to have a different voice, a voice on how they can positively influence and impact our economy, our roads, and the environment in which they work in, and how we can support them better. So please do become a member of the SaferStops Association so that you can stay close to some of these projects. Ayanda, I'd love to hand over to you so you can tell us where you got your information from and why the DOT has reached out to SaferStops to support you in this project.
Thank you, Nikki, for the introduction. Can I get Jerry to flag the presentation?
Ayanda, your audio is fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, can you flag the presentation, please?
I can do that for you, yes.
Okay. Okay, yeah, you can move to the next slide. I know I have a bit of a time limitation. I'll try and be as quick and concise and straight to the point as I can be. So the presentation will cover the background, the purpose of the framework, the problem statement, the definition of a truck stop, status quo analysis, challenges encountered by truck stop operators and the truck drivers themselves, and also look at international benchmarking and international best practice. You can move over. So in the background, the framework comes from the recommendations of the cabinet-approved RFS strategy, which stated that, which highlighted that trucks are parking illegally on the side of the roads. There's limited parking spaces and the types of facilities that are needed by truckers in a truck stop. So we as DOT conducted desktop research on truck stops around the country, and we also embarked on site visits to get a better understanding of the daily operations of truck stops, and also discussions with the owners and the drivers on how they're experiencing the truck stop industry. Next slide. So the purpose of the framework is to have an understanding and improve the efficiency of our truck stops in the country. And the main key objectives of the framework would be to establish an understanding of truck stop operations, define a truck stop in the South African context, as was stated by Ms. Mihlal and Ms. Scott, also develop truck stop standards or grading system, create a database of all the truck stops in the country, as currently there is none that is in existence. And most importantly, establish relations between us as the DOT, truck stop owners, provincial and municipal spheres of government, and also between our state entities. I can move. So we've noted, all of us in this webinar are aware that road freight plays a crucial role in the economy, and it carries about 80+% of the freight commodities that are moving. And truck stops become very important in that they play a role of providing a place of safety, rest, and offer medical services to the truckers that are using those facilities. So we've noted that there's no existing central source of database for truck stops in the country. We do not understand the daily operations. We do not know the challenges that are faced by the truck stops. There are no standards for truck stops in the country. There's no legislation or policy directive from the DOT in terms of truck stops. I've also noted that there's a lack of gender parity in truck stop facilities that we have visited. Next slide. So in trying to understand truck stops, we come across a few definitions of what a truck stop is, but as stated previously, that we want to have a definition of a truck stop in the South African context. So one of the general definitions of a truck stop is that it is a specialized facility that is positioned near a national corridor that meets the needs of a truck driver. It has different services and amenities to ensure the well-being of a truck driver is being taken care of. So in defining a truck stop, there's a list of facilities that it should have. It should be diesel fuel pumps, spacious parking, shower facilities, ablution facilities, wellness clinic, convenience store, entertainment area, Wi-Fi access, repair and maintenance area, security with CCTV cameras, lodging, and also a gym. But then in looking at the list, there are various factors such as the size of a truck stop, the capital investment, and the location of a truck stop that would influence the types of facilities and services that are provided within a truck stop facility. And the list above should be seen as a minimum standards of a truck stop, but in an ideal environment, we want a truck stop to probably provide all of the items are listed above. Next slide. So, in also defining a truck stop, we need to look at the environmental aspects of it. A truck stop needs to have a waste management plan for proper disposal of dangerous materials, a water conservation plan for efficient water usage, and also provide clean and drinkable water. And they need to also have a green energy plan for the use of renewable energy sources, such as solar panels to power a truck stop. Next slide. So in drafting the status quo analysis, we've noted a few things. We know that there's a lack of information on truck stop that therefore affects the planning for everyone involved in the industry, because without information, then we cannot have proper planning. There's an increasing number of trucks on the road. We know that in most truck stops will face an issue of either overcrowding or limited parking spaces, especially during peak working hours, because the more the trucks are increasing on a daily basis on the roads, and the parking spaces is not sufficient to accommodate all the trucks that are moving on the road. As I've stated, there's a lack of legislation from the DOT in terms of truck stops, where truckers would park either on the side of the road or not far from a truck stop, because they know that there's no law or legislation that states they should be using a truck stop to park their vehicle for resting purposes. So they know that there's no disciplinary measure that will be put against them for not utilizing a truck stop facility. And there are some operators, or companies rather, that do not even offer any financial assistance to the truckers to utilize a truck stop facility. And the role of the Department of Transport needs to be clear and defined, whether it be through our own entities at municipal level or at provincial level, because a truck stop is a road infrastructure, and DOT needs to be involved to effectively coordinate the plans for the industry. Next slide. So in our status quo, we visited around about 24 truck stops in the country between 2019 and 2023. And I see in the webinar, there are some guys that we visited, and I'm glad they are here to witness this presentation, to know that when we visited them, it wasn't just us ticking boxes, but we are actually doing something about it and offering our assistance to the trucking industry. So we visited various truck stops around the country. You can move to the next slide, Harry. Various truck stops in the country, and this is just a map highlighting where they are. We tried our best to visit as much as we can, but with limited resources, this is what we could have done during that period of time. But with now our partnership with SaferStops Association, we are hoping to expand this and map out more truck stops in the country, because I know for a fact that there's more than 24 truck stops in the country. So we want to get more and be able to highlight where they are exactly in the country. So even the truckers that are entering into the industry, they'll be able to know where the truck stops are located. Next slide. So for truck stop challenges, there are twofold. There are challenges that are directly linked to the operators, which are the owners of the truck stops, and challenges that affect the truck drivers that utilize the truck stop facilities. I won't go through all of them. I'll just highlight a few. For the operators, which are the owners, there's infrastructure limitations. Some of the truck stops have outdated infrastructure, limited parking facilities, making it difficult to accommodate some of the trucks. A major issue is also accessibility, especially for those truck stops that are located near major corridors. They face an issue of exit and entry, where there are no traffic signs or traffic lights or even stop signs to control the flow of traffic. So it becomes very difficult for trucks to enter and exit the truck stop very easily. As highlighted earlier by Ms. Scott, there's an issue of safety and security concerns, where the owners of the truck stop need to provide safety for the truck drivers, the cargo that they carry, and even the facilities within the truck stop, because as stated, that truck drivers themselves are not innocent. They are guilty of a few things, damaging the infrastructure of the truck stop, which then drives up the cost of maintenance of a truck stop. Next slide, please. So there will be also, as I've stated, that the operational cost, which is linked to the maintenance cost of a truck stop, driver behavior, marketing and awareness, which is also a challenge. We've noted it as a challenge for the truck stop owners, where they're unable to market themselves properly, whether it's putting billboards on the side of the road or even using social media just to highlight where they are and the types of services and facilities that they offer to the truck drivers that might be interested in utilizing their truck stop facility. There are economic cycles that are involved. If there's economic downturns, it can reduce freight volumes in a specific corridor, then that affects the revenue for a truck stop. But if there are economic booms, then in a specific corridor, you find that there are more trucks moving, then that increases the cost, rather increase the income for the truck stop. So there are also impact of delays. If there's a delay at a border or at a port or anywhere else, it affects the ability of a truck driver to use a truck stop, because they'll rather choose to meet their delivery schedule than rather rest, because that will affect their schedule for the entire day. There's high investment cost. The cost to establish and maintain a truck stop is very high, because we need, one of the important things in having a truck stop is land. And the truck stops that we've visited, where they are more established and have more facilities, they own the land, so it's easier for them to invest in it and make it to what it's supposed to be. But if someone does not own the land, then it becomes very difficult to invest in it, because the landlord might change their mind in the future, and then it becomes a problem for the renter of the land to utilize it as they see fit. Next slide. For the challenges that are facing the truck drivers, this issue of driver fatigue and health. There's no quality resting areas and amenities. It affects their health, their fatigue. So a fatigued driver affects road safety issues. So we want to curb that with the development of this framework. And Ms. Scott has stated that their lifespan is reduced by up to 13 years because of their unhealthy lifestyle, and that is not good. And also there's an increase in their anxiety levels, because they are always on high alert, and because of crime syndicates that are involved in trying to harm the truck drivers. Limited access to support. In the wellness clinics, we find that some are not well stocked, and there's not essential medical experts who can support the truck driver in managing their health challenges. Next slide. So some of the challenges also is the image of the industry. You know that there's poor health, long time away from home affects the drivers, operational efficiencies, the driver needs, the poor facilities, and lack of support affects the drivers' levels of certification. No allowance for parking fees, as I've stated earlier. Hygiene. Some of the truck stops are not as hygiene as we'd like them to be, and others offer borehole water, which can easily be infected by bacteria, which can make truck drivers sick, therefore affecting their health on the roads. Next slide. So as I stated, that we conducted a study of international benchmarking, where we looked at truck stops in the SADC region, specifically in Tanzania, DRC, and Namibia. We found three truck stops with different facilities and amenities that they offer to the truck drivers. So this just to compare in the SADC region, what else is out there in comparison to what we have found in South Africa. Next slide. So this is just a map. This is just a map indicating where the truck stops are within the SADC region and in the specific countries. Next slide. So for international best practice, we looked at a truck stop situated between the border of Poland and Germany, which is called the Parking Automatisierungsnetzwerk. We looked at this truck stop specifically for what it has and not the freight volumes within Poland or Germany. We just looked at the facility and saw that it is something that truck stops in South Africa can aspire to and maybe look like that in the future. As you can see that the truck stop has a lot of facilities, parking, there's restrooms, there's dining options, there's rest areas, there's Wi-Fi connection. So we can move on to the next slide. So this is what I'm speaking to when I say truck stops in South Africa should aspire to look like, where the parking bays are clearly marked. There's a marking on the roads within the truck stop facility to indicate which direction the trucks are supposed to be moving, where they are parked, because most of the truck stops we've visited, the parking bays are not clearly marked. So this is something we want to see happen in the future for South African truck stops, just to better their standards. Next slide. Can move, please. This is just another view of the truck stop where you see that even okay, just go back just for a second. Yeah, where the trucks you can see are parked separately from the personal vehicles. Some of the truck stops we visited, personal vehicles and the trucks are not really segregated, and there's no specified parking for personal vehicles. So there's something we also want to see, where even the accessibility is easy to see and it's clearly marked for trucks where they can enter and exit. Can move to the last slide. So we believe that the truck stops play a very important role in the transportation network, and therefore a comprehensive framework is needed that will integrate best practice, address the regulatory and technological changes, enhance safety and security of truck stops, promote economic sustainability, support driver well-being, which is really important. So we noted that in addressing the highlighted critical areas, the framework will contribute to an overall efficient, sustainable and resilient truck stop industry, therefore benefiting the truck drivers, the logistic companies, the truck stop owners, and the wider economy at large. Right. Thank you. That is my presentation. I try to keep to time as much as I can, Nikki.
Yeah, you did amazingly, and we watched you like having to sip water there to keep up with the energy that you shared with us. Ayanda, thank you so much. And I think for everyone that's listening today, you can clearly hear that SaferStops and the DOT and TFN are all very much aligned in what they're wanting to achieve. If I was a new transporter today and I bought a couple of trucks and I landed a contract to run, it doesn't matter what, from Johannesburg, say, to Cape Town, I would have to be very reliant on my truck driver to decide where he or she was going to stop for the night. And I think that's what we're trying to say to everyone here, is that while the big companies like DP World, OneLogix, Unitrans have massive departments and they send out individuals to assess routes and do route risk analysis and assessments and track stops that are approved, for the most part, the emerging transporters and the small operators don't have that resource. So they need to have a solution where they can go and via an app, via some sort of web-based platform, they can go and find truck stops that they want their drivers to stop at. They want their vehicles, assets that they've invested heavily in, to stop and park it. We know the insurers that underwrite this risk also want to know that trucks operators are being as proactive as possible to park their vehicles in safe facilities where there is lower risk of vehicles being vandalized and stock being stolen. And we know that you, as business owners, want to get more wheels on your property. After all, that's where you make money besides fuel and how the drivers spend their money at your facility. So we are hoping to achieve all of that. And all of this is underwritten by road safety. It's an industry that is really worth investing in spite of any conversation that is happening on the road to rail. And I encourage all of you now to put up your hand. Harry, I can't see from my view if there's any questions, if I could ask you just to take over from this point and announce anyone that's got a question for us.
Will do, Nikki. People can, I see there's a question in the chat room. What zoning would a truck stop require? From Caroline. What zoning would a truck stop require?
Zoning, I wonder what Caroline means by that. The only, Ayanda, do we know from the Department of Minerals and Energy what the zoning is? Is it commercial? Guys, I don't actually know, but there's somebody that has given us commercial as well, confirming that. What is quite interesting is that a truck stop that is on a national route actually falls under the responsibility of SANRail as well. So while we are working with the Department of Transport, we also have incorporated the various agencies. CBRTA, which is the cross-border agency, as well as SANRail, and then RTMC, because they all play a critical role in the approval of a truck stop.
Just to reiterate, so petrol stations are governed by the Department of Mineral Resources. And when we were figuring it out, the legislative and the regulatory framework, we came across that it's either a commercial one or there's three types, in fact. And the zoning that is required is to what trucks are going to be stopping at the truck stops. So depending on where you're located, there could be fuel trucks, there could be food trucks, there could be general trucks. So there needs to be a differentiation of the zoning of where those trucks can be located, so that you avoid a situation where the fuel trucks are parked in the same areas as the general trucks. And this is a hazardous issue that needs to be taken into cognizance. So the zoning, as I said, is done through the Department of Mineral Resources, and they are also a strategic partner that we have in the drafting of the framework. So when we finalize what their exclusive zoning ideas should be, then we can come up with a framework that says, based on this regulation from the Department of Minerals, because of this petrol station, this is what needs to be done. So those are all the things that when we have a draft strategy, or sorry, rather framework, we will come back to this forum and say, so based on the regulatory framework, this is what needs to happen, and this is how a truck stop needs to look like based on the types of trucks that they can allow into the truck stops. Also taking into cognizance that it's not all trucks that can stop at all truck stops because of the lack of zoning and sometimes the lack of space, but also some of the services. Thanks, colleagues.
Thank you. And also on that, Matlali, we've also seen truck stops that can't accommodate abnormal low beds because they don't have the turning space or the hardened surfaces to accommodate them. So this is really also an important factor when an organization is doing a route risk assessment. That map that Ayanda had up just now is what we really wanting to do, is to see little geolocations of all the truck stops and all the rest stops along the way that we have been able to measure and incorporate into the app of truck stops. I saw there was another question there, Harry. Could you read that one to us?
Yes, Lebo is asking, are general health checks conducted at the truck stops?
This, I'm assuming, Lebo, you're referring to driver health checks. We are unsure of how many truck stops there are in South Africa currently. We've been hearing numbers of around 350. We don't know. So that's the first thing. But what we do know is that there are 21 clinics operated by the National Road Freight Bargaining Council. And that is not enough for the number of drivers that are on the road. These clinics also have limited hours that they are available to see patients or see drivers. So no, to answer your question, there isn't health checks being done, and this is something that we want to really focus on by working with the private sector to make checking eyes and health checks more accessible and a little bit more fashionable. We actually want to go to the point where we reward drivers with vouchers but for having gone and done a physical health assessment.
Thank you, Nikki. Dion is asking, will your survey also ask drivers the type of health services they require? So be it general, chronic, non-communicable diseases, or nice to have, aside from the mainstream HIV services. Diabetes is a big issue these days, especially with driver diets.
100%. We really have quite a good view of this. HIV obviously always comes up, and and while it is a major issue, it's also a bit of a stereotype. Because not only are drivers struggling with diabetes, which then obviously affects their vision, their fatigue levels, it's exacerbated by the food that they have access to, high sodium, high fat, high carbohydrates. So all of these things need to be taken together. It's all very well to measure and see that our drivers are struggling physically. But if we don't change the food that's available at the truck stops and provide other options, we're still not going to change the environment. I have been told by truck stop owners, well, we serve what the drivers are asking for. What we're going to be doing is on multiple levels trying to create an environment where drivers are educated on better choices. And there is a project happening right now down in Cape Town with Ubuntu Health that SaferStops is working with. It's been funded by the Oppenheimer Foundation, where we are taking a pilot, a small group as a pilot study and looking at the impact of diabetes on truck drivers and how just by means of using food choices, we can reduce the symptoms and reduce their diabetic status. So that's also going to be very exciting to watch because but I think also the Department of Health, as Mahlali mentioned earlier, it's really essential that we have them on board as well. The drivers do not get home often enough to see a GP like we do. And they also need access to their medication. Before I carry on, I just wanted to mention, thank you for that reminder. Please, guys, the Fleet Safety Awards, just Google that, Fleet Safety Awards. There might be a link in the comment section, is about to close. We want you to enter that. There is 20,000 Rand up for grabs for the most improved truck stop. Last year, it did go to Highway Junction, but it can't go to the same truck stop twice. So get involved, register, and compete. I've had the most amazing conversations with truck stop owners telling me how people will queue up to come and eat at their truck stop, or it's a family-run truck stop. Compete for that 20,000 and go register. I see there's another question there.
I'm just scanning through here. It's a lot of comments and questions.
Could I have a couple of thumbs up, guys? I can see those if you found this to be of value. This hour and a half, if you could just send those.
Yeah, maybe also, Nikki, we can say, should there be somebody that's also want to ask a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself, and then I can recognize you, and you can ask your question to the panel. Nikki and Ayanda are available.
Thanks, Drickers.
Nikki, it seems to me everybody's happy.
Oh, okay. So, guys, we're going to send out this presentation to everybody today. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Please work with us. Help us make this industry better. Help the DOT really achieve some of their strategic goals. This is, they're taking action here, and but we need you guys on board, and we want to start doing these audits or assessments as soon as we can. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to log off if there's no further questions. You're welcome to reach out to me, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you.
SaferStops.
Thank you
so
everyone.
much. Bye-bye.